by Sue Minahan.
Welcome to Talk Cosmos, the show where Rose Minahan and her panel of guests bring you leading-edge astrology conversations through a journey of soul growth patterns connecting astrology's energetic cycles. Get ready to understand your path in the cosmic roots of the stars.
Hi, yes, I'm Rose Minahan, founding host of Talk Cosmos, and Talk Cosmos is weekly leading edge conversations awakening your authentic self for soul growth. And we have panels weekly and the ongoing one, which will be the Moonbeam Team today. And we're talking about the season of the moon and the moon season today, that storyline that is affecting us as below, as above the Hermetic code, is with Aquarius and Leo. There's a new moon in Aquarius that happens to also celebrate Chinese New Year. Yeah. And that isn't necessarily always the subject today. It might be that the panelists will decide to engage in that thought. It is where every year it's in a new animal of the zodiac for the Chinese. And this year is the water, because they go along with their thinking of the elements. There's 5 elements in the Chinese. Here I'm talking more about it than I thought. But the point is, it's a tiger. It's the third one. So that could be an overlay just to share that this Aquarius New Moon, regardless, also of every year celebrates the Chinese New Year itself. So it's a retake on life. That's one of the themes, we might say. And the Leo moon, the full moons always offer us the flowering of what we seeded and an opportunity to review it and think, yeah, I like this, and yeah, I don't know about that. So at any rate, those dates, I will say before I sign off in my little intro here, is that the new moon in Aquarius, which is 12 degrees, just slightly over 19 minutes, is going to be February 2nd, in a few days, not long. And 2 weeks later on the 16th, it's going to be that full moon in beautiful Leo that reflects the sun. The sun rules Leo. And it's going to be 27, almost 28 degrees. So we're going to call it probably 28 degrees. All right. We are now ready for the Moonbeam Team. And thank you so much.
Relating to the sun and moon's energies, including the planets and the entire cosmos for the month's systematic 2-week intervals of the new moon and full moon, plus the annual 4 to 5 eclipses, this is your Moonbeam Team.
I'm Rose Minahan, host of Talk Cosmos, an evolutionary astrologer and consultant, plus a certified color energy coach. I explore creative expression as an artist, a musician, and write abundantly, stories to poetry. I love investigating mythology's language, philosophizing eternity, and I'm a perpetual student of life, seeing oneness of body, spirit of people, animals, and nature.
I'm Elizabeth Liz Muschett, certified astrologer, sacred healing counselor, tarotist, and numerologist, providing individual consultations, teaching and tutoring internationally, co-author of Gateways to Change, Keys to Navigating the Seas of Life, currently facilitating workshops in Marysville and Camino Island, Washington.
And I'm Sara Stromley, a craniosacral therapist and founder of Brain Body Therapy in Kirkland, Washington. I'm an evolutionary astrologer that incorporates different forms of horary, location mapping, and medical astrology into my practice. I enjoy uncovering flower and mineral frequencies that also support the mind-body coherence that aid in the healing journey.
And as Albert Einstein said,
energy is never destroyed. Energy only changes.
Amen. Or however, hallelujah, whatever you want to say. But the point is always Liz, at this particular point, is away for this month. She'll be back for the next cycle. And we have a wonderful new member, eternally new, Justin Crocket, Elzie. And his recording is yet to come as things all happen in due time. And Justin, he's an archetypal astrologer. He's an astrology numerologist consultation expert, I might say, a spiritualist medium. He communicates with spirit because it heals relationships, and it's a goal, he says, of mediumship across realities, and it's part of his life purpose. And he does different readings and conducts sciences. Boy, Sue, if I could talk. See, this is where, Justin, by you speaking this, it won't be so awkward with my tongue. But Justin, I'm thrilled to have here. He's a certified meditational teacher, certified Reiki practitioner, and specializes in animal Reiki, which animals are I love the animals. Well, thank you and hello. Glad to see you both again as we traverse this terrain in our story making. And I think story making was important to me because, Justin, you've brought that up a lot about stories. And you're both, well, we all adhere to the Cancerian storyline. The moon rules Cancer, and it tells us our emotional stories. And in this one with the new moon soon in Aquarius, there's so many ways to go, how to hone it in to get started with this. But, I think part of it is looking back, I find, because we have Mercury retrograde right now, just as on the scenario, right? Despite the moon or anything, Mercury is retrograde still. Venus is retrograde as we speak, and Mars is out of bounds. So the personal planets are talking a lot, or feeling a lot, or acting a lot. So that's part of this program. And I find that I was noticing back that, kind of looking ahead, what were some of the signatures that are kind of happening, because everything seems incremental. Because the moon, we know, changes, phase by phase. It's the fastest moving, 13 degrees in a day. Every 2.5 days, it's going to a new sign. And so I was noticing that there is this conjunction of the personal planets, Venus and Mars, the creative element, ahead in Aquarius, but just behind us not long ago, it was in Capricorn. So at any rate, the point is that I was thinking we're really reflecting a lot as we speak, just to kind of get this started, of where we've been. What's the nature of changes? Because that seems to be, the transitional part, major, happening. So, however, either of you would like to contribute in this with that, any other thought or those, go ahead.
Go ahead, Sara.
I think the Aquarius new moon that is yay, like you're the tiger, water tiger, and the mid degrees of Aquarius with Saturn. The Aquarius energy there really likes to break from the norm, and I'm seeing this as a repeating pattern in this chart. And but Saturn is so strong here, and I was pondering, like, how does this express? Because there's so much of this Saturn kind of heaviness around some of this stuff, but also this desire to break from norms and have new experiences. And I came into a story about this marine creature that's called the flatworm, has been making a startling progression, where in France it was discovered that they have migrated onto the land. And in a lot of these coastal areas around Europe, and especially in France and some other countries as well, they're finding that this particular flatworm is making the land infertile because it loves to eat earthworms. And the problem of it is that Another problem to that is that it is a hermaphrodite, which kind of is an Aquarian expression to me as well, like having this unusual relationship with gender. And it can impregnate itself every 2 weeks, and it produces 10 babies. And those 10 babies grow within 2 weeks, and they have 10 babies. And so it's this compounding effect that's just taking out the earthworm, which produces so much nitrogen and phosphorus and minerals to the soil. And this is also kind of another similar theme, is that there's this big trend of getting into mushrooms, like mushroom hunting. And there's a synergistic relationship that trees and mushrooms have, that also, where they feed off of each other, they create a nitrogen phosphorus situation that feeds all the other plants and soil around it, as well as, you know, the sugars that are released there. So so there's these themes of that Saturn square Uranus, and and that Uranus is in Taurus. So there's a theme of like what brings us excitement and joy and enjoyment may not be sustainable. So something that needs to shift, that structure that needs to shift.
It's very illuminating, and it's a great introduction, because I agreed when I was reviewing some of my own notes through other people's, like vibrational astrology, because Linda, I had on early for the solstice, and so I get her vibrational letter, and she was saying that since one of the themes happening until this new moon is disrupting the normal course of our lives. So when you talk about these worms that are disrupting the earthworm, just prey and predator, back to that old reality that we live in, displacing, because earthworms also create a lot of irrigation. They dig in the ground and they create all that stuff. And it's true, this Uranus and Aquarius, which we have a lot of energy happening because the Saturn's right next to the sun and the moon, and it's in Aquarius. So, and Uranus, it's the old and the new. We're in this huge transition focus. Yeah. And mushrooms, who was I talking with about mushrooms? Mushrooms, this is a little bit of a tangent, but mushrooms actually bring in air and displace, like we do, carbon dioxide, unlike the others. Anyway, I think there's if we could start farming mushrooms, that would be the answer. Justin, I know even on this thought or another thought you can add to this as we cook our brew here. What's your thought?
Well, I just to add on to what Sarah's saying there, I think, you're talking about a lot of stuff you're talking about earth sign right now, the flat, the earthworms, the mushrooms. And, it just feels like to me, we're getting this last vestiges of Capricorn energy done with. We've really been dealing a lot with Capricorn for the last 2 years, right? I mean, Saturn, Jupiter through there in 2020. And, here we've got Mars having just moved into Capricorn, won't be in there long. And then Venus in Capricorn. And so we're getting this last vestiges of this change of structure, because Pluto's still there. It's going to be there for at least another year and a half or so. But there's also an asteroid currently going through through Capricorn right now, called Phallos. And from the Greek mythological standpoint, it represents sudden change, and it's sort of like a mini Pluto going there, tearing up that structure. And you're saying the last vestiges of, you and Sarah have talked about the last vestiges, what we have to let go of until we move into Aquarius energy with this moon. And I'm kind of feeling this is the last vestiges of that change of structure, the last of that Capricorn energy. As we move into February, we get, Venus and Mars get out of Capricorn, and we now know, of course, Saturn and Jupiter are out of Capricorn, but we're still kind of getting a little bit of that finishing out of change of structure into what Aquarius is bringing in, and new beginnings. And I love how it's on the Lunar New Year. By the way, I'm a water tiger. I was born in
Oh,
water tiger in
boy.
1962.
Hey.
So it's the one time that that, and I think that kind of lends to a year of courage and new beginnings as we move out of this change of structure. So I'm seeing with some clients, I'll give you an example. There's a client I have, she's having oral surgery right now, and guess what? Phallus is in Capricorn in her third house of communications. And so she's having change of structure of the mouth. So wherever Phallus is in Capricorn right now, we're seeing sort of wherever that shows up in a person's chart, where they're having some of that last vestiges of change of structure happening. So I think this is a real positive thing moving into Aquarius.
Oh, I love it. For myself, that's in my third house and a fourth house, and I'm thinking home. But yes, this all ties together. And I'm thinking also with the Aquarius, it's networking. It's the traditional was ruled by Saturn, as we know, and now by Uranus. Uranus in itself is a planet that goes sideways and backwards. It breaks the rules, just like you had indicated, Sarah. It's changing the pattern and the rhythm. But what I noticed in the news was that in sports, that the Kansas City, and I'm not a sports person, so pardon me, folks, if I get some of this wrong, but the fact was that it's a new kind of energy to be collaborative and very supportive, and I think really demonstrates where we're headed, because vibrational things kind of lead forward. We haven't yet got we haven't reached that point of the new moon, have we? But as just an indication of this Aquarian energy, because as we know too, if we look back, as we had mentioned back in 2020, the grand conjunction with the big guys, Saturn and Jupiter, that every 20 years kind of shift our social structure, which is an Aquarius and air, just for the astrologers, and to give that constant Aquarian theme that we're somehow manifesting and negotiating. But the point was, back to Kansas City decided that they would, if I have it right, gather up funds to give to the other team. Now, maybe that's because it was in Kansas City that the Buffalo Bills were playing. Well, anyway, the Buffalo Bills lost, as it turned out, if I have that straight. But they got all this money, like a lot of money, like $14,000, meaning that then they could, according to this broadcast, advertise how they were giving it. And there were children, of course, and hospitals and all these beneficial, elevating issues that, as far as astrology goes, is like elevating the community for better. That's the higher purpose of it. And also in this polarity point, the children, of Leo, it's like, wow, it's most amazing. So hopefully, and I don't know how the flatworms are going to work into this, but maybe they'll become fuel for composting or something. I don't know.
I think we need to maybe press upon some chefs to come up with some really good gourmet recipes that include roundworms. And so
escargots out, worms are in.
Yeah, so we can send all those mushrooms hunters out for roundworm or flatworms. So
yeah, it is amazing. So
did you want me to, I was going to talk about, if we looked at the chart, I was going to read the Sabian symbols for the new moon, which I thought was interesting. Yeah, so it's at 12 degrees, right? So the 12 degree Sabian symbol, the mantra for that is, on a vast staircase stand people of different types graduated upward, which speaks to sort of the necessity recognizing differences of types and levels of development whenever we live and work together. And then of course the 13 degrees, so it's talking about the natural progression of states of consciousness as we move forward, that Aquarian energy. And then of course 13 degrees, what we're moving towards, is a barometer, is the key thing there. And so it's the ability to kind of discover natural facts, so allow us to plan for in advance for action. So it's sort of this anticipation. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
Ooh, very powerful. I like, particularly, there was another, just, well, hopefully briefly, but I belong to the Center for Biological Diversity. And speaking of Earth and the land we live in, the world we live in, and it was mentioning about utility bills. And I'm thinking, like, here, if we are trying to get different states of consciousness, that, well, and I don't know how political this might be. I hope it's not too political. But just the fact, sticking to the facts, that is this true, according it is true, that some of our energy companies that we automatically pay our bills to are actually supporting lobbyists that act against the betterment for ecological needs, which, so meaning that awareness that, is this what we want? Well, maybe not for some of us. Maybe some of us do. So the point was, is that, isn't this interesting, where there's this stairway in a sense of consciousness? Either you're, once again, for maybe protecting the ecology, or else maybe no, or for the for whatever purposes might be gained for just resources that benefit, you know, I'm not going to elaborate. But the point is, this barometer, yeah, going ahead, forward, trying to garner support of aligned. The planet really seems like it is our mutual ground that somehow is going to motivate and pull us together. That's fascinating. Did you have further thoughts? And then Sara, did you, about how you would interpret like stairways upward and states of consciousness and barometer of what you're hoping?
I'm just thinking of all the massive climate change events that we've had in recent months and in the last year. I mean, the Northeast is just getting a historic snow and windstorm, and
well, it does bring
lots of flooding. Yeah,
it's coming home to each of us. I think on another, maybe I will bring up another part of this season that we're in, you might say, with the Aquarius, is reaching for our dreams. You know, with Aquarius, it's really like that freedom, you know, it's that freedom of, and as we know also, Jupiter is in Pisces, which we know hasn't barriers because it's the natural energies, that the forces that we live with. But so it's that sense of freedom to really to leap out and to find that dream. So maybe, you know, motivation might be, yeah, I'm stuck in a blizzard and I'm going to get out of this. Who knows? But
I just notice and recognize that there is such a lack of fire in this chart, that it's so heavy with earth, air, and I mean, there's Chiron and Eris there, but they're squaring Venus and Mars, and Eris is squaring, you know, that Mercury Pluto.
I'm glad you brought, Sara, that is very important. If I may just pause right there with you, that I like, because it is really a fascinating consciousness to realize the elements. And like, for instance, we're in the water tiger, not the earth or the metal or the wood, but the water tiger of emotion as we go forward. But here with Chiron in Aries of identity, like, is my identity okay? Can I manifest? Can I be who I am? Which is part of the natal identity issue of the United States, because our natal is at 20 degrees, I think. It's a long time that Chiron in its orbit goes through Aries. So it's been since 2018. So we're still in it, and we're still young with it too. I mean, it's only 9 degrees. But because you brought it up that it's squaring those two lovers of the zodiac, receptive desire Venus of our energies, and our choices and direction of Mars that have been together in conformity and structure and now going to join ahead of time, breaking the rules in Aquarius, you might say, disrupting them. Yeah. So it's like, how do I fit? All of this is open territory, isn't it? Of how making that hard choices because if that's the fire, how would you identify fire?
Fire is like inspiration and just flash awareness and psychic ability in that way, in a flash type thing. But I just think that there's Neptune and Jupiter are definitely helping with the spiritual side of it, but the fire is really what motivates. So
then we must be in a very within moment, and I think that is part of this whole chart of coming up, is that the time is within. That's what I was figuring, that it is time to ponder and the stairways, as we know, and how to move forward.
Yeah. I agree with her, and I think what do we see here? A large focus is that we're now in a new stage of our relationships in the collective now. We've been going through a difficult period through the pandemic, and we've kind of gone through this whole process in the collective of anger and different values, and now we've moved into a different stage of relationship, because as we know, Aquarius rules the 11th house formally. It's the air sign of communications in the collective. It's social media. It's so we're moving into heavy Aquarian energies, to where back to that 12 degrees is about everybody's at a different stage, a level of life, and seeing that, we may not agree with this person, but intellectually understanding that they're at their path of where they're supposed to be at. And so we're all kind of at a different stage of relationship in the collective. And I think we also see this now with this whole thing going on with Russia and the Ukraine, and that's sort of that Mars and Capricorn energy coming in, but it's realigning countries. It's realigning those relationships, that Aquarian energies of, now you've got you got Finland and Norway finally stepping up and saying, okay, we're going to join NATO, or Sweden and Finland, where they weren't before. So there's sort of this change of relationships going on in the collective. I think this will, that's kind of what we're talking about, that staircase. Everybody's at a different level, and we're realizing where we are now in our relationships in the collective. So I think that's going to be and in this chart we see, look at all that stuff in the third house in this particular chart. I know you've got it for Washington, D.C. There's a lot there going on in the house of communications, and I think that's really going to be sort of a focus with this Aquarian new moon. Where do I stand with my relationships in the collective?
Oh, I love this. Thank you both. This is like a transition, as we're going to take a little break and come back, but really communicating how our changes are with Mercury and Pluto right next door to each other. And like you say, in that same territory with the structure and the lights gone out. What will we see when we return? Well, we will find out with the Moonbeam team. We have Sara Stromley and Justin Crocket, Elzie, and this is January 30th. I never did say. See you back.
While we take a break from this week's edition of Talk Cosmos, let's take a look at this cycle's archetype. We are currently in the Yang period of Aquarius, ruled modernly by Uranus, and Saturn in traditional astrology by the ancients. By leaving a cycle based on governing structures through both man-made and universal laws, Aquarius breaks established patterns, permitting the energy of freedom, just as its ruling planet Uranus spins on its side and orbits backwards. As a fixed air sign represented by the water bearer pouring the spirit of cosmic energy, Aquarius seeks to find like-minded, intuitively aligned souls to connect in social groups for the elevation and improvement of all.
Talk Cosmos brings you leading-edge astrological conversations with hour-long programs each week on KKNW. The show goes live every Sunday from 1 to 2 p.m. Pacific. Talk Cosmos weekly programs are also available to watch live on Facebook and YouTube, along with daily chats throughout the week on the Talk Cosmos YouTube channel. While you're there, make sure you click like and subscribe buttons so you can get the full Talk Cosmos experience. Or, if you'd rather listen to the show archives with audio only, the entire podcast collection since 2018 is available on most podcast carriers. So, grab your coffee, tea, or kombucha and enjoy the show.
Hi there, this is Shannon Hayes from Seattle, Washington. I'm an evolutionary astrologer, and you're listening to Talk Cosmos on Alternative Talk 1150 AM, where we unveil astrology's ancient archetypes that continually build the collective experiences in our unconsciousness.
Get your daily dose of variety. Alternative Talk 1150.
Oh, hello, we're back again. This is Talk Cosmos Leading Edge Conversations with the Moonbeam Team, which we return once a month. And we're talking about the Aquarius New Moon, which will be on February 2nd. And then we've discussed that in a bit, and is this whole tied-in storyline. But the one that follows in its next chapter is going to be the Leo full moon on the 16th of February. But it was interesting that, and I want to mention that missing is Liz. She'll be back next time to join us. And because for those that might tune in each time, have noticed, but we're happily forging along here with a trio. And I listened to Shannon because all the astrologers bring up this part of the whole network. People have a voice, and Shannon was on the Cosmic Collaboration for a long time, and she also is a Mayan astrology, and it was so I follow the Mayan astrology, and that was part of what I wanted to bring up. So it was interesting that synchronistically, for whatever importance, I'm bringing all this attention, but the point is that the Mayan astrology goes in 13-day segments called tresenas. And it has a whole 22-day calendar of signs, you might say, to thinking of it like the Western astrology that we know. So the point is that the one we're in right now is about power and wisdom. It's called Kan, K-A-N. And so every day has a new development of what that power and wisdom might be that we're coming across. It's very much like Scorpio in a way. We can think of it that way because our nodes, there's so many changes that have happened just in the last week or so. We've changed from our whole nodal system, lunar nodal system of energies. And for astrologers, it's important. For the rest of you folks that aren't so keyed in like this obsession that the rest of us have, it's still good to notice that the paint has changed in your home. It's no longer the same hue. We've got different hues going. And it's with Taurus, which is more about resources, and Scorpio, the exchange of those resources, and with spit it out, Sue. Power and wisdom. Thank you. Yes, back to the story. So when it comes to the 2nd of February, part of that is a number 6 day representing family and stability and integrating what I found fascinating aspects in spiritual aspects into the physical realms, which is so much like the energies of the nodes that we're experiencing. And I think in some ways we could look at it like why Aquarius has, if you'd agree with me, at least evolutionary wise, it's seen that can be trauma. You know, it's not just innovation and breaking away, but in that breaking away, it's hard to catch up with all the changes. Like Justin, you were mentioning, which we all realize, but you brought attention to the fact that we have been, and I guess I did in the beginning, that we're reviewing and changing in this ladder of consciousness that the moon is asking us, the new moon is asking us to do, of going forward, but looking back and renegotiating the new terms of our alliances and everything. I think we've all spoken of that. Oh boy. So I guess that was an intro and a bit of the past, and maybe we should go ahead with any comments, or should we look at the full moon right now? What's your thoughts?
I just wanted to point out that I thought it was interesting that this new moon at 12 degrees is also conjunct the fixed star dorsum, which I was bursting at the seams to talk about last time, but I didn't want to sound too gloom and doom because of its significations with earthquakes. But we did experience the Tunga eruption that was the biggest in 30 years. It blew ash and even into space. It was just the shockwave from that just could be felt and seen around the world. It was just quite amazing. So I'm not saying we're going to have another earthquake, but maybe there has been, just a few days ago, there was another 6.2 earthquake. The other one was, I think, 6.8. So, and there's another hot spot that's kind of about 100 miles north of there that they're kind of watching too. So we'll see.
Well, Maui had one of 4 point something. Now, it didn't affect us, but it is interesting, Sarah, that with this, your astute awareness of it, because it does, how can I say, it brings into our consciousness the fact that there is we can think of it as mysterious almost, how these connections, there's a greater energy force to how we associate the worlds. As Hermes says, as above, so below, as below, so above. And maybe it is of great use to see that there's physicality that we could measure in some of these ways, just like there were 12 apostles for however one looks upon the Christian belief system or religion, whatever you call it. And I've often thought that's because there's at least 12 ways to hear things, right? 12 ways to say things. So in other words, there is with like you brought up, with this fixed star that's in close alignment from where we are looking out in that pattern, an energy that does seem to interact with us. It's like one more validity of, oh my goodness.
And another signification just from the ancients indicated that with the sun and Mars at that point of 12, 13 degrees, that it could be a significator of venomous bites. So if you're a snake handler, use more caution during that day. But to me, it's almost symbolic of being aware of those that are full of venom and using caution when.
Well, the good, the bad, the ugly is part of life. And we could talk. Certainly some changes are, well, it's like trash and treasure, right? If you ever go thrifting, it's like what one person doesn't want, somebody else does want. And again, you go back to the flatworms, maybe there's a good for all that. Although I don't think getting rid of earthworms is so great. But yeah, we we can't deny what is. And then again, it's how to interpret. Maybe we should go into the full moon, yeah, and ricochet from that. Let's see what that chart looks like. If our illustrious leader can give us the next slide. Let's see. Oh, the next one after that, please. Yeah, thank you so much. Okay, this is a Leo at the very end, almost 28 degrees, which people will say numerically, there's 30 degrees in a sign, that 28 is like the culmination of everything it is and the best. And it was back, come to think of it, what Regulus was for years. Now it's moved to 0 degrees Virgo, because the fixed stars move 1 degree every 72 years. But this would be on the 16th, and I'm squinting because my screen is little, pardon me, at 11:56 a.m. in the East Coast. So go figure on your case.
That's
Just
fascinating. Yeah, it's just exact that where you have the arrow pointing to the Venus and Mars.
Isn't that incredible? Yes.
Degree of 16 degrees, 56, 57 minutes. Just incredible.
Well, then I had a little bit off, and I correct myself now because we're heading towards 2 conjunctions with Venus Mars, and I flipped myself. On the 16th, they're going to be exact in Capricorn, and on March, I have it down March 3rd or March something, it's going to be at 0 degrees Aquarius, which could be a trigger also for that grand conjunction back in January 21st, 2020, when they connected, for the next 200 years in air. So here we have, as we call it, the cosmic lovers, but the creation force, you could also say, perhaps, yes, on that full moon.
Well, I like how you said the word creation force, because when we think about the moon in Leo, we're talking about creativity, right? Leo rules the 5th house of creativity and children, and moon in Leo is creativity. And if I may, I wanted to read the Sabian symbols that so because it is 27.59 technically. Read what we're in and then what we're moving towards. So the 27 degrees archetype is an ancient pottery bowl filled with fresh violets. And from Dane Rudyard, who was a famous astrologer, his take on this was it spoke to the importance of traditional skills and artistic values deeply rooted in man's instinctive feelings and frames of reference for our authentic emotions. So there's a creative aspect here with this. And then, of course, the 28 degrees, what we're moving towards, the archetype is a tree felled and sawed to ensure a supply of wood for the winter, which kind of speaks to what we were talking about before with that barometer of the barometer. It's sort of this perception of what's coming up. So this, in case, talks about knowledge and skill used in natural surroundings for the satisfaction of basic needs for what's coming up in the future. Intelligent foresight. Excuse me.
That's all right. Thank you. That's really a great illumination to ponder, because especially in a full moon, they're apart. I mean, that 28 degrees, 27 degrees relates both to the moon and to the sun. The sun of our ego, how we incorporate everything, and our moon as we reflect our emotions and our story and habits and everything else of our security. And it is, I think, interesting to think of the wood, because that I think a lot of preparation, right? Wood heats us. Wood is energy. We cook our food from ancient days on wood. I mean, with fire, right?
Yeah. I think both of these things really kind of speak to me about um, um, skills. And before that Aquarius New Moon was talking about sort of the energy in the collective and how we're all different and how we're getting along. And but now we're with a Leo moon, which kind of speaks to what in a lot of respects we all try to creatively manifest within the collective. And so we're kind of focused more on the skills, the creative artist, what are we going to do creativity as, from a creative outset as we go forward. Skills and our skills, our creativity and skills.
What I find interesting about that Sabian that you mentioned with the pottery filled with fresh violets, violet flower essence is one that I've heard described as treating the sense of fear of being oneself, those that lack confidence in really immersing themselves in social situations and being true to themselves because they feel that it's just going to be washed out by the group think.
Well, that's amazing, because that's what Leo's trying to do, which is,
yes, that's what Leo's
Leo's
trying to do
about
here.
presenting
So,
authentic self. I love how you connected to the violets. That's awesome. And that's a flower essence, not the essential oil
yeah,
you're
it
talking
just
about, right?
helps with the emotional side of that side of it. But yeah, I noticed that there's a yod here that goes to that moon, and that's between Mercury, Pluto, in those Saturn signs, and also Pallas Athena in Mars. And Pallas Athena is about diplomacy and negotiation, especially in Mars. She's a little more direct with strategy and art of war type stuff. And Mars with Pluto, Mercury with Pluto, Mercury's now direct, and it's been infused with that Plutonian transformation, need for really deep thinking and deep considerations. But those are in harmony, in sextile harmony to each other, and then making that yod to the moon. So to me, that's again like taking a sovereign stance for oneself. And if someone that you identify with isn't being an authority in that area that best represents you, maybe the authority in that situation needs to be you, like to step into it. And to me, this whole water tiger year, this full moon in Leo really speaks to courage, having the courage to step into your own authority and to be yourself.
I like that. I know I've been blipping in and blipping out. I have a very Aquarius disruptive service today. So at any rate, but I was going to comment that Mars is not out of bounds at this point. It's now inbounds. So really, it's easier to probably manifest that Capricorn from what I gathered you were commenting. And courage is so much part of it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great time with that Mars and Capricorn to okay, it's time to get moving. It's time to plan. It's time to get that structure set up. It's like get off your seat and get going. But it's not fast because it's not in a fire sign. But it's like, okay, I need to get forward moving with that structure. And I think this conflict we're kind of seeing in Eastern Europe, it really kind of makes me think about that Mars and Capricorn,
Yeah, the tough love conversation, whether that's with someone else or even with yourself. So
for myself, I will say that interestingly, the day before I'm going to start an LLC. So that will be part of my chart. I will with the conjunction there with the Mars and Venus, for Talk Cosmos. It's like we have in business and in government all these different layers of charts. And so thinking of a business energy. So it'll be interesting. As you said, Justin, to get up and go. It's like, oh my gosh, I've been wanting to, but now I won't have a choice, will I? Yeah.
Water Tiger year is a year that has more considerations around money too. So, because water element in Chinese deals with money. So,
you know what? And that reminds me, we can't forget, or we must remember that just days after that, on the 20th, I believe, 22nd, I believe, will be the exact, according to depending on the chart you use, the United States Pluto return. So of course we're in that really intense orbital influence for last year, going like culminating at that point, and then hitting like a gong 3 times, once in July, a second time in July, and then in December. So yes, when you said about the water finances, ours is in the second house, and how do we reassess our resources and what's our values? I know that's been a big comeback comment that we've been making, but it's going to stay with us. Yes. For what purpose? What purpose are we wanting to maybe, like whether it's our electrical bill, whether it's donating to some team to help the other team, or yes, go ahead.
I was going to say those. Yeah, I think this clearly shows those nodes. You're talking about, you and Sara were talking about it earlier, the nodes in Taurus and Scorpio. The whole collective is kind of going through this reassessment of resources this year, and I think it makes resources, and I'd be curious what Sara thinks about this. I think it makes the whole idea of concept of resources a little bit more volatile, because Uranus is in Taurus there. But this is the time to really say, okay, I need to look at my resources this year and a half, and it's a good time to look at new sources of income, but also with that scorpionic energy with the south node of getting rid of stuff that of income or possessions or things we valued before that that don't serve us anymore. And so this is definitely a time. This year's going to be all about the economy and the stock market and our resources, and so that's what I gained from what you were just talking about.
And I might just, if Sara's going to say something, what those lines are is because this full moon opposition is intention square, as we call it, to the nodes. So yes, we are collectively thinking what's been past, what's ahead, and thinking of how to make ourselves more sovereign, you might say, because Taurus wants self-reliability. But part of that is with our artistic creativity part. And of course, when we talk about creativity, like how do we express, and through music or art, the nonverbal ways, there's great potential there. I don't think we have too much time. Sara, so yours. Yes.
Yeah, there's a number of things I could say here, but I just think that there's, with that Taurus energy as well, it's a lot about finding one's purpose and stepping into that more and more. It's really important to do that the first quarter of this year.
And it will be possible. This is good.
Yes.
But that energy that's asking us, how are we going to create? I'm just now starting the artist way. It's been around since the 70s. Julia Cameron wrote it.
We did that together. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm writing my pages and developing, and it's like a reminder that there's so many ways, whether we dance to a tune just to feel that what's within, it's not all linear. You know, we've been through a whole time of Gemini, where I love Gemini, I am a Gemini, but it can keep you from A to B a little bit more. So right now we're going with the body and the senses. Yeah. Well, we have not too long. Thank you, Justin. Thank you, Sara. Liz, we'll see you next month. And next week is going to be Planet Buzz. And this is Talk Cosmos, Leading Edge Conversations. And please subscribe. Check out all our speakers, Talk Cosmos, the bios, and you can reach anybody and find out more about your life.
Thank you for joining us on Talk Cosmos, the show where Rose Minahan and her panel of guests connect soul growth patterns with the energetic cycles of astrology. Be sure to tune in next Sunday at 1 p.m. Pacific Time to continue your journey through the roots of the cosmic pathway.